next panel, DOs. So these are stories and lessons and challenges and opportunities around digital transformation in the animal health industry. Hilary Jensen will be moderating, Dr. Ahmed, Trevor, Scott, Brad joining her for a very vibrant discussion on all things digitally transformed in our industry.
So I was the founder of OBI, Digital Pet Health and Wellness. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart. And my background is all technology. So I worked for Google, Excited Home, LoopNet, and have my degree from Harvard and Stanford. But enough about me. We have an amazing panel today, and it's diverse in that we have 3 people from the large food animal industry, and then also 1 from companion animal. So I will let them introduce themselves. I've asked, and this is Umair's favorite thing, and now has become mine, for them to share one thing that is not on their LinkedIn profile. That's PG, of course. And and then we will go into what does a digital transformation mean? It sounds like, I mean, we were just talking about it. And when we talk about digital transformation, what kinds of data are you collecting and how? And then what do we think the timeline is to see short-term and long-term transformations? So Scott, if you don't mind starting, and then we'll go to the other panelists.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Lyle. I head the Pet Insight Project at Kinship. Kinship is a rather new division of Mars Pet Care. I like to think of Kinship as the digital innovation and VC arm of Mars Pet Care. The Pet Insight team itself is comprised of veterinarians, data scientists, data engineers, and other technologists. And what we're doing is using AI to link changes in behavior for companion animals with changes in health. Prior to that, I was with Pfizer Zoetis. I see some colleagues on the line, which is great. I started out in Paris in a team called Business Innovation New Business, which interestingly enough was founded by Albert Bourla, who we see a lot of these days. And then I finished my career, I rolled out with Zoetis, the animal health division, when IPO in 2013. And with executive leadership, I set up the Center for Digital Innovation, which I ran out of London. And I reported into the CIO as my last stop before coming back to Mars, and I am now in California, back at home. One interesting thing, here we go, and it is PC, but it's kind of interesting as I think about it, is back in the 80s, some time ago, before there was digital, and we used floppy disks and had DOS computers, I had a beachwear company.
Oh, wow.
Yep, we've sponsored players on the pro circuit, volleyball, had 400 accounts, mostly surf shops, but eventually made our way into Nordstrom's and Macy's, things like that. And then the crash of '87 made some pretty big changes. But anyway, that's my unique contribution. I'll stop there.
That is a surprise, so I would never have guessed. That's awesome. Thank you, Scott. Dr. Ahmed, may I have you introduce yourself, please? Oh, you're on mute.
Hello, everyone. It's already late evening, so good evening from Dubai. I'm Dr. Sohail Ahmed. I'm the CEO of Arabian Farms Investment Company, and we are a group of poultry companies based out of Middle East, mostly in Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. We are one of the largest producers of eggs and chicken in the country, producing about 120 million eggs per annum and about 6 million chickens in Dubai. Dubai is more or less like UAE is like dependent on a lot of imports. Almost 95% of the food is imported into the country. Yet we survive being the premium producer in the country. We produce a lot of different kinds of eggs, omega, pasteurized eggs, and all that. So this is a farmer's perspective. I'm basically a veterinarian, and also like more than 31 years of experience purely in poultry sector, with 20 years in the Middle East and 10 years in India. I work for some of the largest companies and which have adopted technology in the last 15, 20 years. So I have a bit of experience, and that's what pushed me into adopting the ERP and then a few more softwares to manage our businesses in the last couple of years. And I would like to share my experience here in the platform. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. Brad, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today, Amer and others. It's a great opportunity. So I'm Brad Coffer. I am the CIO at a company called AgriBeef. We are based in Boise, Idaho, in the United States. And we have, I guess what you'd say, we like to call an integrated supply chain. So we have from feed yards where we grow cattle and process cattle and sell product to customers, be it retail customers, food service customers. We also have an e-commerce outlet where we sell direct to consumers. I came to AgriBeef about a year and a half ago, a little less than that. But prior to that, I worked at IBM and did a lot of consulting. IBM's a big company, spent 19 years there, was able to move around and do quite a number of different things, from software sales to consulting, hardware. I got into the hardware space a little bit as well. I have a supply chain background, so I was able to leverage that and put it to good use across a number of different industries, although not specifically in the animal health industry. So when I was talking to AgriBeef about coming on board, I had to remind them that I didn't have an animal health background. And they were like, we've got plenty of people that know that. What we'd like you to help us with would be some of the technology. How do we become more of a digital enterprise and help us resolve some of those issues and get systems implemented and all that good things that CIOs do. So that's what landed me here. And then, so I guess one of the things maybe on my LinkedIn profile, but I was formerly on an aircraft, way back when I was a lot younger. I spent 3 years living on an aircraft carrier. And so got lots of different and unique experiences doing that on a day-to-day basis. Kind of fun watching aircraft land on a little 2-acre piece of plot. Great experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But happy to be here and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you. And Trevor, that leaves you.
Hey everyone, Trevor Gardner. I'm Vice President of Sense and Insight Operations here at Vitelli. For those who don't know who Vitelli is, we're a concatenation of what we call Baby Vitelli, which was originally our IVF, bovine IVF business, originated out of the US and now gone global, as well as our original GrowSafe product, which we've melded together under the parent name of Vitelli LLC. And so we're we call the integrated technology platform built specifically to accelerate genetic progress in cattle. And so I'm accountable in this role for the full digital transformation here at Vitelli, which includes things like the rebuilding and redesigning of our web UI, integration of all of our products under that web UI, rebuilding of our data lake and data warehousing infrastructure of the firm, and really to extend all of that with full service APIs and integration with a bunch of our key partners to gather and collect and transform all of our phenotypical data as well as our genomic data as well. And prior to this, I come with a mathematical and statistical background. And so I've always been pretty keen on data. Very much not just data itself, but the visualization of that data and the trends that the mathematics and statistics can bring, especially in arenas where data capture is often more subjective rather than objective. And so you get a little more fuzziness in your data, if you want to call it that. So in my career, I've sort of been filling that gap between what I call the hardcore technical development crews out there and product development, where really the central theme of it all is data. But the challenge is the expression of that data into what I call knowledge and wisdom. And that's kind of a key thing. So previously to this, I've held roles as managing directors at a bank. I've been president and vice president of plans for strategy and growth at a number of firms. And recently, prior to Vitelli, I was chief operating officer at TrustBix. TrustBix is a Canadian ag tech, food, sustainability, and traceability company. In fact, where I spent most of my time working with Cargill Canada and McDonald's Canada on their sustainable beef program, what they call the birth to burger program, where today all Angus burgers and quarter pounder burgers at McDonald's are now sourced from a fully sustainable supply chain. So that's a little bit about me. And something interesting about myself, for those who are hockey fans, I'm Canadian, so I have to be a hockey fan, of course. I played a pretty good level hockey as a young guy. I played up the midget AAA team back as a first-year goaltender against kids that are 18. At that time, it was a pretty big deal. And I happened to be able to brush up against a pretty important guy, an old retired NHL coach, Ken Hitchcock. He was with the Dallas Stars, Philadelphia Flyers, the Blues, the Edmonton Oilers, and so. Not directly underneath him, but I spent a fair enough time to be yelled at a couple of times at a few games from him. So I take pride in that, I suppose. That's a bit about me.
Thank you. And I feel like I should reciprocate since I asked everyone. For me, something that's not on my LinkedIn profile is I'm a 5th generation native Californian. So I'm very proud of that. But yes, my Irish ancestors came here and were goat farmers in the Bay Area. So I think we've addressed this to some extent, which is what does digital transformation mean to you in your specific industry? But how is your company collecting data and what's important for you to collect? We've talked about, I think people have said, this is a paradigm shift. This is not common for the poultry industry. It's not common for the cattle industry. And so perhaps set us up with why it isn't common, or is it becoming more common, and what you are actually tracking. Dr. Ahmed?
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate enough to, work with the Pure Lines, and some of you who know about how the Pure Lines are managed. Each individual bird is kept in a cage individually, and there are thousands of them. And we used to manage somewhere around roughly about 60,000 birds. And all the 60,000 birds are individually monitored. And each one of those birds from day one of their age until they reach 40 weeks of age, they are monitored. Monitored in the sense like, the amount of feed they consume on a daily basis, the eggs they lay, and the weight of the eggs and the shell strength of the eggs. All this data is collected in a massive way. I mean, piles and tons of data is collected. So that was an introduction, to data collection from my career. It was about 20 years back. And then that's when I realized that there's huge potential in collecting data, analyzing, and then using it for the benefit of, efficiency in managing the farms. Later on, I moved into the commercial aspects of the business. And then I see that, a lot of companies, even the big ones, they don't have proper ERP to manage the business. This is quite common in the poultry industry. We are a mid-sized company, and then we are one of the pioneers, I should say, or early adopters of technology, and that's how it all started. When I started my career about 30 years back, the only gadgets which were there at the farm were as a thermometer and a weighing scale. And we come from that to, we have come quite far. Now, if you see, you're monitoring on a dynamic scale, oxygen levels, carbon dioxide, and then you're even monitoring ammonia levels in the house every second. So that's come a far way. I mean, we have come a far way.
Just a follow-up question to that. Has that, and I think it's probably an obvious answer, but how has it increased your yield, or has it for eggs, for example?
Yeah. See, there are many benefits of adopting technology. First of all, you can reduce the waste. There are a lot of waste, in the feed consumption, and the eggs which are produced, the breaking, breakages. So you won't know if you don't collect the data properly. And then once you collect the data, you know the extent of, the saving you can make out of it. So in the last couple of years, we've been adopting this technology, and we adopted the ERP. We have saved quite a lot of money in that front. One of them is the waste. We have reduced the waste, and the second thing is the decision making. When you have the data, then your decisions are more factual.
Great, thank you. I just want to encourage our panelists. I chatted to you, but please feel free to unmute yourself and pipe in and make it more of a conversation. I don't want to have to cold call you or all the time. And so, Trevor, you just unmuted yourself. Would you? I'm sure your opinion is that it's very easy to get all this data and make it very clean.
Yeah, I wish that were probably true. I've only been in the egg space the last 3 years, and similar to other panelists before have said, in other industries, this is much easier to do. The Vitelli business has been for a number of years, so a couple of decades actually, been sort of leading the forefront in how to collect this very what I call fuzzy data out in the network. So we've got tons of sensing hardware out in the field. Our very specific focus is on ensuring, just like Dr. Ahmed, that we get the individual animal data set, not on mob, not in group, not in herd, but rather individual animal. And so we've been building phenotypes and fertility data for that long on individual animals. We're in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of animals across pretty much every breed you can think of we're in 21 countries around the world. And so it's super important that we have the sensors with the right level of resolution to grab the right amount of data, but that we also don't over resolution ourselves as well. So we have to derive that high resolution data into data sets that we can consume, and then turn them into what I call knowledge. Data itself is almost moot. Capturing it's the hardest part. Capturing it cleanly and repeatedly is a challenge. But once you've got that data, it's moving up the DIKW stack, right? That data, information, knowledge, and wisdom stack. That's what I'm so most interested in. Information is great. Knowledge is awesome. It gives us the ability to be able to use it in some particular way for the clients. But wisdom to me is converting data into what a doctor does for us, which is give us recommendations. It says, you should be doing this for all the particular reasons. And so that's what really drives my goals for the company as well. So again, it's that, whether it's feed efficiency, whether it's water intake, weight gain, all these inputs to the bovine world that are so important to help derive out good genetics based upon feed efficiency, animal indexes, EPDs, EBVs, and then I heard earlier before around our GHG and methane expirations, right? How does that look like in this industry as well? So sensors are great. Collecting the data is awesome. Doing it cleanly and repeatedly is a challenge, but I think moving it up the value stack of information and data, knowledge, and then wisdom, I think is the key for me that I'm driving so much of that. And I'll just add one more item here, is that we've been invested in algorithms, some statistical algorithms, some proprietary statistical algorithms, and now into some EMI and a little bit of AI work that we're doing as well to help improve not just what we're seeing in terms of the historical data by animal and by breed, but also how can we infer that information on a forecasting or predictability perspective, see things coming before they occur. So these are sort of key areas that we're really trying desperately to think about and think into. And so I'd love to hear what other folks are thinking on this space as well.
Yeah, may I jump in?
Please.
Please.
Yeah, Trevor, I love your comments. I mean, it's very interesting. So the Pet Insight team is a research team. We're really data scientists. We're underneath the hood trying to build new signs, track behaviors. Ultimately, how do we make this of clinical value? And with earlier intervention, where you get better treatment performance, margins open up, all of that stuff. So to me, it's almost as though our success is shifting from generating really important science to actually having people understand it, and then how do you communicate it? And that's been my hardest challenge. I found myself writing marketing copy, trying to help our communications team, how to express it, how do you sell those value points, and then ultimately, what's that commercial model look like? And so I'm curious to see how you've been doing. So is it the angle that you would empower the vet or reposition the vet to look like a profit center versus a cost center when he walks on a farm? Do you have to actually work with a farmer to become a solution provider and consultant? I mean, there's some fuzziness to, and I'm still wrestling with it. It's like a muddy windshield I'm trying to see, but I feel like I can barely see something ahead of me.
That's great.
I don't know if you have comments on that, Dr. Ahmed or Trevor or anyone else.
One thing I'll add, and what we are trying to do. So I'm very big on sports analogies, right? And it's, if you want to get your team at a more high functioning level, let's focus on some of the fundamentals, right? So, I want to drive our teams. What we want to do within our business is make data-driven decisions, right? So facts are a stubborn thing, and they reveal a lot to us. So I think Danny and the panel, the first panel, talked about how too much data can be overwhelming. So we don't try to just flood the system with all the data. We get back to a point I think that Clint actually made, was that what's the problem you're trying to solve? And focus the area around getting the data around those specific problem areas so that we can see and understand and really kind of illuminate that problem to determine what we need to fix and how to go after that. I think the more data that we have, the more confident we can be in our decisions, and that's kind of what's generating a lot of the AI in the space, and being able to build these algorithms that will kind of in an autonomous way help us become better. One thing I'll comment on is, as we're doing this data collection and we're kind of flooding the ecosystem with data, is I'm convinced that the innovation we're seeing in digital transformation is the innovation of technology and how we are more able to collect data, right? So RFID, radio frequency identification, there's sensors, there's GPS data is everywhere. We carry a GPS sensor around with us in our pockets. They're becoming much lower cost. Audio, there's audio and microphones that are actually out there listening for specific sounds, and then recording that data after that sound is made, be it it's a wake up phrase that you have with a device you may have in your home, or there's also microphones listening for sounds that mean something bad is happening, and then recording data after that. Charlie mentioned video and what we can do with that. So there's so much in the data collection aspect that it's becoming really helpful in helping us understand, again, if we can focus in on those problems. But then one of the challenges we have, and everyone's talking about it, is that we've got to have a way to cleanse that data. Unfortunately, I have enough experience to know that when you run into dirty data, or you spend most of your time trying to cleanse the data, make it a little bit more so that you can use it in between systems, standardizing that, and it's a challenge, I think, across all industries. I know in the medical industry, they're seeing it when they're trying to use AI, and it's something that we need to address. So I think those are some fundamentals in which we're trying to focus to really build up how we can make better decisions and run our business better.
Thanks. I did want to talk about the devices. And Scott, I know you have a specific association with Whistle, but Trevor, could you talk? I mean, what are the cows wearing? Is it the tags in their ear, or is it devices that are surrounding their feed area?
It's an interesting question because we're caught in that interesting paradigm of leverage what's in the market so that we don't try to invent too much too fast too quickly and get no traction. So, use of EID tags in ears is important. It's an easy win. It's already in the market for the most part. And so we leverage that all the time. And so all of our sensors are leveraging that EID tag to identify the animal individually, obviously. But it was said earlier on that the use of image processing, right, is another very interesting technology that we're looking into that goes beyond just weight measures and EID tags. But there, I think it was just Brad had just said, like, there's so much technology that's just in the power of these days, right? It's amazing, and it sits in everybody's pocket. And so how do we bring data there first and foremost? And so simple sensors that work in all environments is the answer, and will always be the answer, as long as those sensors are ubiquitous in the market. And there are patches of it. And the bovine world still struggles in North America, especially in the US, around ensuring that all animals have EID tags. It's still a challenge, but it's coming for sure.
In the chickens business, if I may jump in. In the chickens business, we monitor temperature and humidity mostly, ammonia. And again, overwhelmed with data is again a big problem. It's a challenge. So we fine tune it. Like in those days, about 30 years back, we used to take temperature manually once in a day, probably. So now your systems can give you temperature every second as well, if you want to record it. But that's too much of data. So we take a midway, and then we start recording, let's say, in every half an hour. And then to find out the fluctuation in the temperatures and then take decision basing on that. So that way we control influx of data into the system, number one. And it is definitely a very challenging initially, at least to move people from their comfort zone and then to adopt a new technology or a new thing, which a new procedure or new policy to be implemented. But once the people start seeing the benefits of that, then it becomes quite smooth. I think initially about 3 to 6 months, once you start implementing this, you will face a lot of challenges. But afterwards, it becomes quite smooth. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
One more comment I'll say. In the absence of hardcore sensors, what we've done is used a derivative of sensors and some mathematical algorithms to infer animal behavior. Right? If you don't feed, if you don't drink, if you don't drink or feed often enough, if you don't, we can infer behavior by how the animals do and don't do things within the sensors and the algorithms we can provide. So, you can get crafty in using your data sets and the sensors you have, or the sensors that you don't have, and we often have high ability to predict based on that inference. We're quite amazed by what we can see without even having those sensors there.
Scott, that seems like the perfect setup for you. But just before that, I want to let everyone know that I am looking at the questions, and I'll ask one more question, and then we'll go to the questions that are in the chat. So Scott, talking about inferring behavior.
Yeah, so this is interesting. The way we're packaging our algorithms, and I'm going to try and drop it in and connect it to one of the questions or comments, is that we basically package them into what we call levels. The first, we use our deep learning architecture, where we're trying to very quickly and accurately understand, is that dog drinking, eating, scratching, drinking with diabetes, eating with dental disease, and we can start associating these with important disease categories we want to address. Level 2 is where we start looking at potentially population thresholds, where we can understand how that animal is measured against the population, against what a sick looks like. It could be done trending off its baseline. There's a number of different ways we kind of put this together, but it's a way to understand how is that animal doing. Now, level 3 is interesting. This is where we get multifactorial predictions, and we're trying to bring, let's say, scratching with licking for some pruritus or some dermatology problem, or it could be sleep disruption with drinking during those disruptions and changes in activity during the day for cardiopulmonary insufficiency, and we can embellish these things. And then level 4 is external data. So it's ultimately going to be it's going to take a village to raise a child, so to speak. I'm looking for some good analogies here. And that's an opportunity for third-party technologies to help us build more complex or better predictions as we're collecting data. I know there's challenges with who gets on that data lake, and maybe there's ecosystem wars and all these things that seem to be merging next. But ultimately, this, I think, is where it's going. In the companion animal space, it's particularly interesting. And I'd be curious to get, if we're going to see this in the production animal, is that we're moving to this remote care, this connected pet model, which is really a subset of the connected home, where, but it's a B to B to C model where we are engaging the pet owner. We're trying to take objective data off that pet with some of these algorithms we just talked about, and then share those back with some care provider. It could be a pharmaceutical company, it could be an insurance company, but ultimately build an ecosystem where we're all collaborating along the continuum of care to shift from the focus or center of gravity from treatment to better prevention and wellness, where we're tapping down on the severity of these disease conditions. Where I think's happening in the companion animal space, or we have some things to look at in the human space, is you've got big tech now that are building out these verticals in human space, whether it's Apple, Google, or Amazon. Amazon now, as you know, they're wiring up the homes with Ring. They've got Halo, where you've got biometrics on your wrist. They've got Amazon Care telehealth, so they can tap you on your shoulder, say, hey, something's not right. With a click of a button, you're talking to some professional consultation. They've got Amazon Pharmacy. They can, right when you hang up, they can drop you medicine at your door. And then they can have Alexa in your home telling you, tapping you on the shoulder, hey, you forgot to take your medicine. But as you draw this out, and then you have AWS building out the infrastructure in the back end, where they're building this basically dynamic electronic health record, all this data going in there. They will forward and backward integrate into the chain, and they could easily pivot into animal health. So, is that a bellwether, a canary in the coal mine? How do we actually bring together important third-party technologies, as the big as well as the startups? How should all this basically congeal into something so that we don't let, frankly, guys in hoodies determine what a good outcome looks like?
Well, I might consider myself one of those guys in hoodies, or girls in hoodies. But I think it sets us up for a great question, which is the innovators who are on this call, and they're potential entrepreneurs, or they're already out there. What is your advice for them? Meaning, do you partner with large companies in order to make sure that you are successfully creating digital transformation, or do you stay far away from them?
I can share an experience, I suppose, that hopefully will help. I've been part of enough acquisitions, either full or in part, or investments where some great entrepreneurs with great products, great ideas, great energy fail for the same thing over and over again, is the inability to take advantage of what I call the network effect. And this is the ability to say, I can't do it all, and I'm going to grow exponentially. I'm going to need a team that can help do that. Now, whether that company's large or small, that's irrelevant for me. I think what's relevant for me is that as an entrepreneur, you have to find that energy and that releasing of your control to let the network that you have and others around you help you to build out your business. And so, especially transformation, even with us at Vitelli, we're actively looking for partners. We've got one with AWS and NVIDIA, for example. We've got others with Synomics out of the UK. We are actively, constantly looking for great partners with some great ideas. Sometimes they're early stage, sometimes they're late stage. but we're looking for those to help us be that much different in the market. So don't underestimate the network effect. And if you do it all yourself, the chances of you winning are very, very low.
Brad, we haven't heard from you for a while. Do you want to add something there?
Sure. Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with what Trevor said. I think it's really important to leverage those partnerships to create that kind of ecosystem that would solve the customer problem. Again, I'll kind of go back to not creating data for data's sake, that we are focused on specific areas that you can improve a business. So Scott was talking a lot about how, you can monitor the animal, you can determine certain health or certain characteristics of that. I mean, it's big for our business to, the health of the animal, and determining based on how they feed, to get to where Trevor was talking about a little bit, how they feed, how much water they're drinking, that they're in good health, all leads to greater grades and yields in our business, a better product. And it's really important for us to do well there. Those are areas that we need the innovation, and that we need specific vendors out there to solve problems like that. So for me, I look at that as maybe a problem area, a specific point that people could focus on, and make sure that we are attacking the real problems that we're seeing within the industry.
That's great. Dr. Ahmed, anything you want to add? And you don't have to.
Yeah, a classic example is the Folio 3. Recently, we partnered with them, and we wanted a solution for our human resource management system, and then a customized solution rather. Even though there were many plug and play, there were already existing systems in the market. We wanted something different, and then we partnered with Folio 3, and they have worked and done a great job by providing us a solution. Now the system is up and running since the last couple of months at least, and we are very much satisfied with it. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's partnership between the users as well as the solution providers. Yeah.
So in the last 3 minutes, and thank you all panelists, this has been great, and I love that you're building on each other's points. We had talking about the future of digital transformation also relates to one of the questions, which is, and we'll stay on the positive side, I think. Can you share one of the great successes or an aha moment that you may have had with the data collection and the digital transformation? And then is that stepwise, or in like 10 years, are we going to be able to talk to our dogs and talk to our cows? Where are we going? Trevor, do you have a start there?
Yeah, I guess I have a great example. This goes back a few years, but there was, in the early stages of the firm I was with, as an oil and gas company, digital transformation was actually, we were giving away data. We were giving the data away back to our customers. We were building all this great material, great hardware, great services, but giving away the data. So we instead took that data, transformed it, which means we built a website. We transformed the data from raw to consumable. We built analytics around it as a service, and presented it in a way that was critical to the revenue side of the model for those customers. It was a revenue. The data we provided was actually a marker of revenue, and so when you're at the top line of the stack of a company, that always is helpful to measure those sort of things. So literally in under 18 months, we grew a business from $0 to about 45 million annually in recurring revenue. So I call that success for many reasons, not just from the customer's eyes and their ability to grab that data and be able to measure their revenue in near real time, but that the value to the company was remarkable. And that was, with 96% margins, I mean, it allowed us to spend an investment in other areas that we probably couldn't have done or done on our own in the past. And so created a war chest that we could play with, and many other technical transformations we had over the number of years. So, and just to talk about the frustrating part, just very, very briefly, I think the frustrating part about it is along that path, it wasn't as easy as counting the money in the door. We had a lot of ups and downs, some failures in that transition, but we kept with it because we knew it was the right thing. So, the frustrating part is you will fail a little bit. You'll fail upwards, not downwards, but expect it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I'll just weigh in very quickly. So frustratingly, an ERP implementation is a hard thing. And especially if you go through certain waterfall or big bang approaches, something I will never do again. But it's interesting that that trouble to get us there got us to a point where we are already, and we still have to complete areas of that, but we are already collecting and seeing data through that is making us better. So it's going to be it's well worth the effort. We're starting already to see how that data is coming together and getting insights, again, kind of illuminating problems that we've not seen in the past, and it's already we're already starting to reap benefits. So it's definitely very rewarding experience.
That's awesome.
And Hillary, if I could one last thing, I think what Brad said was dead on.
Okay.
Moving from waterfall to agile was the way we failed upwards. You'll have failures, but they're small and you can react quickly. And so I agree with them. I will never go back to a big behemoth waterfall project and expect good results. It's got to be agile or another term I call it for it is iterative waterfall. So smaller waterfall events can also be a way to go about it as well.
Boy, can I relate to that. So I'll take one more minute from Sebastian, if I can, from Scott and Dr. Ahmed. Do you want to add something there in terms of successes or what you see in the future in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, definitely. The data will definitely help. Like one example I can give is like in Dubai, we have temperature fluctuations from 11 degrees Celsius to 50 degrees Celsius. So these kind of fluctuations, when you are recording them and then you analyze them, you know exactly what's coming up for the birds in the next period. So that has helped us a lot in managing the birds over the couple of years now. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of benefit by collecting data, analyzing it, and then using it for your decision making.
And Scott?
Okay, I'll just go as fast as I can.
Take your time. I thought we were closer to time. We have like 3 more minutes. So
Okay, so there's three pieces to this. How do you transition, or you bring this technology and commercialize and actually get adoption? First thing that we did, well, we've done many things. One of the things that we did was we wrote a paper on the accuracy of our signs, so that, and peer reviewed, it's in, we use real world data, and we publish that in the journals Animals, if you're interested in reading that. But the point of it was like, look, if you're going to, as a veterinarian, rely on this data, you can be assured that you're making good judgments based upon that data. So that was one, we could take that concern off the table. The second thing we did was we pulled out scratch around dermatology, because derm is the second highest reason that a client will leave his vet, because it's a chronic problem, it's frustrating. And we went head to head with industry standard. Industry standard is the PVAS, this visual analog scale. What we were doing was taking objective data from the pet, and we could actually track the progression of the disease, where the PVAS wasn't so good at that. So we could prove that we're building a better mousetrap, which will make for better veterinary medicine. And then the last piece, what we're working on right now, and I hope to publish in the new year, is that if you alert a pet owner and tap them on the shoulder saying you need a veterinarian to check this out, can you change their behavior? And we're seeing that indeed we are increasing medicalization, from diagnostics to all kinds of different treatment. So I think what I'm trying to say is that digital and what we're trying to do from transformation is going to make it, and we have a way of actually making the world a better place with all these things that we're doing.
Well, and on that note, I can't wait to make the world a better place. So thank you all to my panelists.